Hello, I'm Earl, and welcome to Earl Gibbs Live. Have a very interesting guest. Always here with us on Earl Gibbs Live and also on Hot 99.9 FM radio. The man, Mr. CEO, the Chief Executive Officer for Henderson Insurance International.
Yes, Henderson International.
Got to add that international.
Yes.
How are you doing, Mr. Henderson?
I'm great, Orla. I'm great. It's always good to be here with you, and I want to say a shout out to your audience.
Well, we are back in the big H, hurricane time.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. And someone have to give information from the sector, Oral.
Yeah.
I think most insurance entities are in their own way promoting awareness, but at Henderson International we want to contribute also in bringing awareness to the hurricane season. Yeah. When we look at what is happening right now, the predictions are not that good, and even if you don't want to consider the predictions, if you look at what has actually happened in the world when it comes to climate change and catastrophes from January until now, it is very significant. We had a flood in Dubai, we had flooding in Argentina, Uruguay, we had a flood recently in Tortola, as a matter of fact, and earthquakes, tornado in South Africa, and this is all in 2024.
And then some people say, well, what that got to do with me? It has a lot to do with us.
Yes, if you have any assets and you care about protecting those, then you should probably take a look at insurance as one of those instruments to be able to protect your assets. And most importantly, it is only when you protect you can transfer it to the next generation.
It's amazing because sometimes people say, boy, I'm insuring my property now for 10 years, nothing happened, so I'm not going to insure it this year, and bam. The year when you didn't do it is the year something happened, and then you lost everything.
Yes, and in my business, I've seen that happen. Sometimes people feel that, it has been a while since we have not had a hurricane. And that 1 year that they decide to roll the dice, sometimes it is the year that something terrible happens. And that's why insurance, you have to look at it as something that you have to budget for. If you have an asset of $1 million, living in a hurricane belt means that in any given year, whether it's by fire, hurricane, tidal wave, earthquake, collision by a big truck, or even things falling from an aircraft, or even as a result of a strike and malicious damages and so forth, your $1 million property is exposed to all that type of risk. So it is important to budget, because it is just about 1% of the value that you would pay in insurance. So you have to look at 1 million versus paying 1% of that to be in a position to file a claim after something happens. So that is the best way to look at it. It's not that, so many years have passed and nothing happened. Some people think they can save that money also, but if something really happens, then you would have to use the money to fix it back, and then in that way you will have to use money that you have saved that you could have used for other things to now fix that back. So it's best to budget for it.
Let me ask you this, because I was speaking with a guy the other day, and he says to me, I have a house, but I can't afford to insure the entire house. And he asked me a question I couldn't answer. He said, I wonder if I could just insure just the roof or the top floor, because he lived in a 2-story. Is that possible, or is that possible?
Yes, it is possible. It is done on the basis of first loss. First loss meaning we know that the property is worth, let's say, 100,000, but you agree with the insurance company that they will be responsible for the first 50,000, and you will take the responsibility of the second 50,000. So once you agree to it upfront, then yes, it is possible, and like that you will not be rendered underinsured.
Okay, so then if this particular guy have to insure his property, then he will have to get an appraisal of the property, right?
It is best to have an appraisal, yes. But if you don't have an appraisal, you can still do it based on the open policy concept, where you don't have to have a certified appraisal. However, in that instance, you expose yourself to be rendered underinsured if after something happens, it turns out that the property was more expensive or less expensive.
Oh, okay. Because then you're making an estimate without an appraisal report, you're saying? Is that
correct?
Yeah. Oh.
If you have an appraised value, then there can be no misunderstanding about the value after a loss. If you don't have an appraised value, then it can be open for a discussion. If it is higher than you insured it for, then you'll be rendered underinsured. If it is lower, then you would be overinsured. But the negative consequence is when you are underinsured.
So underinsured is worse than overinsured.
Yes, because underinsured means that the value is worth, let's say, 100,000, but you insured it for 50,000. So the insurance company collected premium for half of the value. So the settlement will also be half of whatever you are claiming.
That happened a lot back in 95, I think.
Yes, actually every year that we have a significant calamity, it happens. But that is also because very often prices are inflated after a hurricane.
When you say inflated, from whose side? You mean from the hardware or the...
Because of the high demand and the scarcity that is created at the same time. So zinc that you would buy maybe $30 after a hurricane, it can easily cost them $45.
So anybody get around that? Oh.
You would have to get stakeholders at the table before a hurricane to establish that, look, we're going to set a certain evaluation for certain types of homes, and you have to agree that if there is an inflation factor of 15%, 20%, that it will not have an adverse effect on the coverage. But you'll have to agree to that. Some insurance companies do have that provision in their policies, where even if you're underinsured by 15%, they let it slide.
Okay. In case you just joined us, I'm Oral Gibbs here on Oral Gibbs Live, and you're either watching us on Facebook, YouTube, or listening to us on Hot 99.9 FM radio. My guest is Mr. Neil Henderson. He's Chief Executive Officer of Henderson International. Been in the insurance business for a very, very long time, right?
Yes, that is true. Longer than I want to admit in public.
But you have a wealth of experience and knowledge in the whole area.
Yes, it's my core business, and I try to stick to that.
Over the years that you've been in this business, what surprised you most about, say, the mistake people are making and still continue to make when it comes to insurance?
Well, there are a number of different types of clients, but there are also a number of different types of challenges that they face. So for one client, they just want to make sure that they're insured properly, and it doesn't matter how much the cost is. For another client, their budget might be tight, and they might have to make a decision between sending a child to college versus paying a premium. For some people, it's that bad that they have to choose between buying food versus paying a premium. And because it is so iffy whether something will happen or not, some people don't see the imminent risk. So it is easy to let the insurance slide. But then when there's a hurricane or any type of loss, even a fire, then they become very conscious that, but wait a minute, I could have had a settlement today had I only pay my premium of, let's say, $1,500 or $2,000. So it is a consciousness that lives stronger with some people than others, but also has to do with the financial position of people. And on St. Martin over the years, the finances are playing a bigger role because of the inflation that we're dealing with, cost of living, that went up significantly since the hurricane from 2017, the COVID pandemic, and the wars and the hike in gas prices. So people are struggling even more now. And I think it would be probably better if we can have a situation where government makes an assessment of those people that are unable to pay premium and try to finance their premium or to give them a grant to pay their premium versus trying to collect huge amounts of monies from Holland and the World Bank to try to fix their roofs and fix their properties. So to give a simple illustration, let us say to insure everyone that is not in a position this year to pay a premium, if that premium is going to cost $2 million to help those people, it's better to do that and cover a risk of, let's say, $100 million that you might need to look for when those people have losses.
So, because I can see the point you're trying to make, because after a hurricane, it's tons of millions of guilders got to go to assist these same people.
Correct.
While if you have that budgeted on government's budget, and it covers those that don't have a mortgage and can't afford insurance, it makes a big difference. Though I don't know if that's what you.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Because 2 million versus 100 million,
Yeah.
it's best you pay the 2 million, help the people so that when their claims they can collect a settlement of 100 million.
Because those that have a mortgage don't have an issue there because the banks are making sure that their mortgage is protected.
Yes, but even those have challenges because if they cannot pay the premium, it means they will run into problems with the loan agreement.
And that's why some banks, I understand from people, they'll insist that they put that as part of the loan so that they can at least don't have to worry about that.
Yes, and that is creating a whole different problem now because you have to look at the debt service ratio when you're giving loans, which means the ability to repay the loan. Right? So if you're earning 1,000, you cannot have a mortgage expense, including insurance, that is more than 30% of that 1,000. So now that most people are falling short of meeting that healthy debt ratio, you have commercial banks now that are turning to more giving loans to foreign persons. So Canadians, Americans, Europeans, they get a loan much easier than someone who is living on St.
Really?
Martin. Yes.
Well, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's not a hidden secret or anything. If you ask any commercial bank, including the central bank, they will tell you that that is the trend now. And for the simple reason, these people come in with a bigger down payment and their payment discipline is better. That is what the commercial banks are saying. That's not my words.
I mean, then it makes us look bad if their payment discipline is better than us.
Well, That's how it's justified.
Yeah.
Because the commercial banks, remember, it's not their money.
Right.
It is monies from depositors. So when they're lending it to third parties, they have to make sure that it is lent in a way that it can be repaid. But now you're looking at a societal challenge with this practice. And it is something that we're going to have to look at because at some point, then you have to ask yourself the question, the development of St. Martin, is it something that is going to benefit our children?
Well, I understand most banks in the region see the Caribbean as a very high-risk area where the chances of getting a repayment on a mortgage or a loan are much more riskier than anywhere else.
It is often said, yes, because the budgetary discipline, most European countries and well, and by the time you're ready for a mortgage, you're of a certain age where you understand budgetary discipline. So if you're from a country where it is instilled at an early age, then you will exhibit that type of discipline much better than people that comes from an environment where, you take a loan and you pay some today and next week you prioritize different and so forth. So if that is truly our reality, then we should look at how we can educate our people in terms of budgeting.
Well, we drive fancy cars, man. We got some nice cars. Some of those cars can get you a little condo.
Yes, definitely. Back in the days, you could get a good start with those type of funds, but unfortunately, the loans system, the structures, or the risk assessment of commercial banks were not of such that you would give loans for land or homes. It was more for cars, and that culture persists. So we are at a stage where we really have to out a fire, basically.
So what happened to, say, the people that own a home, they don't owe the bank, but they can't afford the premium? Can the insurance company like Henderson International say, well, okay, John Doe, your house is valued at $280,000. Here's your premium. We are willing to give it to you over 6 months to 8 months. Is that possible or not possible?
Well, as standalone brokers, and this is something we spoke to the central bank about, we are not in a position to finance premiums because we don't have clients depositing money with us.
Okay.
The commercial banks, however, they can do that because when we deposit funds, they can take those funds. I don't know if there are any rules prohibiting them to take those funds because they're making huge profits with people's money, and they are killing the insurance brokerage sector, even the sector of insurance companies, because insurance companies are not in a position to finance premiums. So it's an unlevel playing field. And that is why you see now today some commercial banks, they can advertise insurance and you can pay it monthly and so forth. So that is something that at some point Parliament is going to have to look at, because it is only normal that you would expect to operate on a level playing field. So no, Henderson International will not be in a position to finance premiums. If we should have a level playing field, then perhaps the central bank can make cash available to us to finance premiums just as how commercial banks do.
So then, as a brokerage firm, you can ask the insurance companies to grant all the independent brokers that privilege also, they won't do it, right?
No, because right now, even the insurance companies are so regulated, and remember, there's very little capacity. So when they accept risk, they retain a certain amount. And the difference, which is most of the risk, sometimes 20, sometimes they only retain 10, 15, 20%. So they have to pay reinsurance premiums. When reinsurers have to get paid, the local insurance companies have to pay that premium in full. So they don't have the leeway to finance anything or to give breaks, because if they do that, they will run into problems with the central bank.
Oh, okay.
Because the central bank needs to see that when an insurance company accepts risk, that they are properly reinsured and the premiums paid. They have to show that they have assets in place, that if something happens, let's say 100 homes burn down at the same time, and one insurance company is responsible for that they have sufficient reinsurance, they have sufficient properties that they can sell fast and start to pay out claims. So because of how regulated the insurance sector is, you will not have access to free cash for them to finance premiums.
Oh.
So commercial banks, however, because people are just depositing their monies there and hardly getting any interest, they can use those monies to finance premiums. And a question that most clients have is, yes, it is nice that the commercial banks are offering these things, but what type of service are we going to get after a hurricane? Because commercial banks usually close their doors at 3 o'clock, 3:30, and they just don't have a culture of really going out there and making sure that claims are settled and going the extra mile to help clients.
So as a broker, that's what you do then?
That's what we do.
Yeah.
Yes.
So and the client don't have to pay you anything extra for that?
No, we earn commissions from the insurance companies because we have a setup where we give clients information, we advise them about different policies available that would best suit their risk profile, and we negotiate lower premiums for them. And when they have claims, we make sure that they don't have to do the legwork to deal with the insurance companies and claims adjusters and so forth. So that's where our added value lies. And when you look at the entire financial sector, right now it is only the broker sector that is really on the side of the customer, because the interests have changed a lot. The reinsurers, they have to make decisions in terms of the capacity we have. Where do we sell that capacity? Do we sell it to the Caribbean, where there's a lot of hurricanes, or do we sell it in South America, where there's less and we can get the same premium without paying huge claims? Insurance companies, you have the shareholders, you have supervisory board, you have layers of management and so forth. And then you also have the banking sector that is very involved in insurance now. So the question is, when something really happens, whose interest will prevail? And that is why insurance brokers should have the ability to really sit with clients, advise them, but also assist them when they are claims. And that is something that is heavily impeded on right now because of the regulatory requirements. It's taking up a lot of time, human resources, and finances.
What are you hearing from people that walk in, say a new client? Is there any usual thing you're hearing from, say, everyone or most people that has struck you as a person in this business now for so many years?
Well, the first thing when a regular client comes in and you tell them, listen, I need 2 copies of your ID. I need to know where you get your money from.
You're going to ask them all that too?
Yes, they get extremely upset. It's because in all fairness, Oral, when we look at the big scheme of things, when it comes to terrorism and financing of wars and money laundering and so on, we are not anything compared to the bigger countries. Simon is like a village. So if I know you 25 years and I have to say, well, Oral, I know who you are, but and what is happening a lot now, you have particularly commercial banks that are imposing their own regulations out of commercial considerations, but they're blaming it on the central bank. So they'll tell you, well, Oral, from today you cannot come in the bank with a red tie. And when you say, but why? They say, well, the central bank doesn't want it. And we find that the central bank is too passive because they don't correct these things. They don't go public easily and say that, these are the rights and obligations of customers. They do it, but not often enough.
Now, in the past, you go to an insurance broker to open the policy for insurance on your home for hurricane, right?
Mm-hmm.
They never ask you for all those 2 IDs, etc. That just recently started, right?
This is like
2 years, 3 years.
This is like for the past 10 years. Actually,
that long? Really?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Because it started from 9/11, right? When the world realized that you can have people living in Afghanistan and Iran and so forth, and they're being financed from an uncle that lives in New York to start a war, and they're being sent weapons from a country somewhere else and so forth. So there was a need to track customers' spending. And every day that something new is brought to the attention of the regulators, it is imposed.
So that was imposed
everyone.
even for the brokers for insurance policy.
Yes, if I'm sitting with you right now in my office trying to conclude a policy, and I get an email from the central bank that, we have one Mr. Gibbs that showed up on a list here as a suspected terrorist. I don't
like using that name. We international now too. I don't want to use that as an example. So fine.
Okay, let's
say, oh boy.
Let's say Mr. Attab. Let's say Mr. Attab is sitting. Now you're putting me in a whole different situation because they'll say I'm profiling. But let's say Mr. Mohammed Attab. That's one of the names that was called after 9/11. Yeah. So constantly. They're taking corrective measures to curb the widespread desire of people to fight wars, commit terrorist
They're doing a very pretty good job.
Well, we have to be careful.
I mean that sarcastically, no way.
We have to be careful we don't create terrorism because we are putting too much pressure on people.
The little
or
man,
countries that don't have the ability to pay for these levels of policing.
Yeah.
It's like looking at our police department in St. Martin, right? When you hear them speak sometimes about the conditions in which they have to work and so forth, then you understand that finances is important to make it function optimally, right?
Right.
It's the same when you dealing with the insurance sector or the banking sector in a small community. At the end of the day, the monies to police, it has to come from the end customer. And that's manifested in fees and no interest and negative interest and sometimes very unreasonable conditions.
Yeah. Negative interest.
Yes.
Explain that for my audience who don't know what that means.
A negative interest is where you pay the bank to keep your money.
Stop there right now.
So,
it's about it, you know that, right?
So you put in 1,000 and they're like, okay, well, nice that you brought this money here. We're going to start holding $100 from it.
Well, I put it this way. You put $100 in your account, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to take out $100, you got to pay a what, 1%?
Yes, 1%. Yeah. That's for starters.
And your interest on that is 0.02%, somewhere. Maybe
it's zero. Higher, it's a zero something.
So then it's negative interest rate.
Already. But then if you use the teller, it has a fee.
So even more costly.
If you use the ATM machine, it has a fee.
Yeah. So it's
So I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, Oral.
But we can't do without them. You know that's. I always tell people you can't do without the banks. You can't do without the insurance companies. You know what I mean? And there's other thing you can't do without. I'm trying to figure it out. I can't remember it right now. But these are essential.
Food, supermarkets.
Supermarkets. So there's this love-hate relationship.
Absolutely.
It's just like attorneys too. People don't like attorneys, but you gotta go. I was telling someone the other day, you go to an attorney, you lose your case, you don't want to pay. That's what they want you pay up front, you know? So we put insurance, bank, and attorneys all in the same line. But we need them, we love them too.
What to do, world? That's the way of the world.
You ever thought you get it? When you was a young guy, this was always what you wanted to do?
No.
Well,
No, I had a passion for law.
Okay.
And then I realized that, most lawyers don't like insurance law. So to graduate, they would choose labor law or some other type of law. And when I started working in insurance, I got the opportunity to go and study in insurance. So I chose that because I realized that it is something where you can also help people to preserve their properties, to transfer it to the next generation, but also to build wealth. And it takes you into knowledge about taxation and finances and so forth. So it's very wide. And you can go real deep.
All right. In case you've just joined us, this is Oral Gibbs Live on YouTube, Facebook, and on Hot 99.9 FM radio. My guest is the Chief Executive Officer of Henderson Insurance, Mr. Neil Henderson. When we come back, we're going to continue speaking with him right here on Oral Gibbs Live. Please stay with us.
We are vibrant, expressive, warm, and diverse. Together, we conquer, and now we expand into new horizons, giving you more of the best. Introducing our new Bankomatico Plus with wider acceptance, purchase protection, and enhanced security. Whether you're online, traveling, or in paradise, experience more with Windward Island Bank. Bankomatico Plus, more of the best.
You're watching Oral Gibbs Live. My guest is Mr. Neil Henderson. Mr. Henderson is CEO of Henderson International, one of the longest brokers here in Simon Insurance, right?
I guess, very long.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you've been doing a lot. You've been like a pioneer in the insurance brokerage firm because you started that whole association with some other guys.
Yes, that was in '96, the year after Lewis. I was one of the youngest brokers at the time, and so I called a meeting with some elders, and it was like 10 of us, including Michael Ferrier, Jim Van Heck, Rupert Maynard, Alex Richardson, Alex Maynard, what's his name, Harold Richardson, and about 10 of them. And I said, it is very important that we shine light in the sector. And I wouldn't want to be part of a sector where people feel that we're not transparent, we're not giving sufficient information. because a lot of negatives came out after Hurricane Lewis. So there and then, it was at Lynette's restaurant. We decided.
Yeah.
No, right here.
Oh, in St. Bay, that's
next to the airport.
That's Felix.
Felix, yes. And there we decided, well, we will start the St. Martin Insurance Brokers Association. And the objective was to give information so that people understand rights, obligations, who the actors in insurance was, and what they can expect from them.
Okay. That was, so I gotta admit, that was Clayton Felix that owned the...
Yes, Clayton
right.
Felix,
Yeah.
yes.
Time goes so fast, man. When you
Yeah.
mentioned 1996, I said, Jesus Christ, man, I'm that old already? You know? It's amazing. So, you all got together, you became president of the...
Yes, well, they say I'm young, and so they blessed
Are you
it.
still president today?
Yes, today I'm still the president.
Oh.
With some changes, and
Oh.
you had different presidents. Dwayne Elgin was one, Richard Boyd, Alex Maynard at one point. Yes.
Yeah. So it's when you look at St. Martin as an island, I mean, you've seen all this development. There's got to be a lot of money for insurance here with all these huge projects taking place. Do you all get a part of that pie?
Yes. I believe most of the insurances are done here. However, because insurance is something you can buy any part of the world.
Explain that one for me, please, because people don't understand that.
Okay. Insurance is like any other commodity. You can buy a shirt in St. Martin, but you can also buy it in New York or anywhere in the world. However, when it comes to insurance, if you really want the security, if you want guarantees, you do better when you buy it in a territory where you live and where it is regulated.
So then that's where you come in as a broker, Henderson International, that makes it much more safer than for the...
Yes, but not just my company, but the fact that we fall under supervision of the central bank. The central bank is supposed to supervise and make sure that everyone is in good standing, everyone is complying, so that when the industry gets a shock, whether it's by a hurricane or any other calamity, that you don't have people that are left uninsured or that the industry falls apart. So you can use any broker in the world to buy insurance for you in Dubai or London or anywhere, but it's always best to deal with an entity that is regulated and subjected to rules and regulations of the central bank, and better yet, if it is an entity that is subjected to the territory of St. Martin because of perhaps legal disputes, then you can go to the courthouse in Phillipsburg.
I know after Hurricane Lewis, the property that my company had at Madam Estate, we were insured on the company in Aruba. So then you had the administrators telling you there was issue with, I'm sure you're...
Yes, I'm fully, I know the name and everything. I can see the director of that Aruba company vividly.
We both owned property in that area, so you know.
Yeah. And they had reinsurance in Venezuela. So at a given moment, you were getting Venezuelan money, pesos.
But it was very little too. They couldn't do all the repair they had to do it. In the way they had to do it, they couldn't do it.
Yes, because Venezuela at a given moment put a ban on the export of U.S. dollars. So you were getting
Pennies on the
pesos.
dollar. Yeah.
And then you had to solicit the assistance of local banks to change the money so that you can get dollars. It was a struggle.
You see, but that was a surprise to me at the time because we didn't know that was the way that the property was insured. The whole group, because there were a number of owners that were surprised, not just...
Yes, the insurance world is very complex from the back end. You know, customers see the insurance world from the faces that speak to them, right? But behind that, there's so much that have to happen, and that is why choosing representation is very good or very important, because you get to avoid a number of things that might have an adverse effect on you when you have to file a claim.
I mean, you could pick up your phone and say, "Hey, Neil, you're right in St. Martin."
Yes, and
Compared to a guy that's in Aruba or Venezuela.
yeah.
Boy, it's amazing, though. Huh? And but you know, it happened more often than we want to believe sometimes, and it still happens.
Yeah, because you also have a lot of different types of reinsurers. You have some in Hong Kong, London, different parts of Europe, even Saudi Arabia nowadays.
They get involved in it also too.
Yes,
in
well,
in the region.
Yeah, well, reinsurance is they're entities that just have huge capitals.
The Lloyd's is one of the oldest and biggest, right?
Lloyd's is yes, and you have HSBC, it's Hong Kong Shanghai Bank.
That's why some problems recently too.
Recently again?
Well, that's recently a few years back.
Okay. Yes, with you had people going depositing huge amounts of cash, and at a given moment they got a fine of, I believe, 750 million.
It wasn't in the billions.
No. Oh no, that was a Turks and Caicos life insurance company. In the case of HSBC, it was billions, but they paid that fine with
chicken face of them
monies that they generated in 1 quarter of the year.
It's amazing, but the whole insurance industry, those that are involved in the reinsurance and so forth, they stand a lot of risk. They can lose even the entire property if they can't make the payments.
Yes, and that's why regulation is so stringent now. The only problem, though, with regulation, and I speak as an entity that really focus on the weaker ones in our society when it comes to finances, the imposing regulation because of what happens externally does not always match our reality. So there should be some things that you just exempt us from. Otherwise, you're going to have to be sending home people. Look at what's happening with some of our commercial banks. They're sending home people because the demand for human resource, you have to hire much higher educated people than before. Your IT system have to be top notch. And
so that's where they're hiring people now.
Yes, but the people who used to long ago, or when you had someone working in the bank, you could walk around and say, well, my wife is a supervisor in the bank. A lot of supervisors in the bank right now are in the process of being fired or laid off. So it's a huge change because they're also being driven to do more things online. So, and you've seen First Caribbean Bank is now sold to Orco Bank. So there too you will have some people that would be out of jobs. And I think those are things that we, from the back end, as a small island state, should look at a little more deeper into, so that we protect our people.
Well, the technology is changing, and I mean, if you go to the bank in Holland, you walk into the bank, you ask yourself, what's going on here? There's nobody in the bank. And sooner or later, that's going to happen here too, later on in life. It's already started to happen.
So we need to prepare our people for these changes. And not everyone wants to be a business person, But yes, and if they are forced to become a business person, at least we should make sure that our educational system prepares them for that. And if not the younger ones, those who are already mature, then you give them a chance of a second education.
So you all as brokers, independent insurance brokers, do you all get to speak with the central bank on an annual basis to find out what's happening? How that goes?
We have, I believe, 4 meetings annually.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yes.
So quarterly you have a meeting then?
Yes, and the central bank would send their agenda. We would get to add things to the agenda. So the discussions are going pretty good. The developments are going pretty good. But the one thing that we are most concerned about is the unlevel playing field and the fact that the customers are losing a valuable asset in the availability of brokers. And what do I mean? Long ago, my company alone would do an average of 3 collective pension plans, right?
Okay.
For companies, which is a very good thing because when people retire, you want them to have some income besides the AOV, which is something that people complain a lot about.
Like supplemental in a way.
Correct. So long ago, we could have done 3 of those in a year, but it required that you speak to employees. You have to sell them on the idea that it is good for them and it's worth giving up 10 guilders of their salary so that they can earn something after retirement. You also had to take time, speak with the employer, because most employers in St. Martin are not Dutch employers. They are Americans, and they have a concept where they don't really believe in pension plans. So you had to sell them on the idea that, you know, it has huge fiscal benefits for you, and like that you get to keep your good employees, you know. So it took time. And then you also had to meet with the unions to let the unions know that, look, the employer is going to give a benefit, so it means that maybe the next year or 2 there might not be a salary increase, etc. Today, as a broker, you don't have time to meet with all of those people and explain them those things, and it has a direct effect on the way people retire. So, and that is because we are so busy with compliance.
So the paperwork bogged down the...
Yes. So, and that is why, at least we at Henderson International, we make time, even if it's once a year, to bring information to people, because we realize that without that information, people have a promise on paper that is put away safely in a desk or some part of their home. And when it is tested by a hurricane, then the surprises are sometimes not so pleasant.
So for new people, new homeowners and so forth, they shouldn't be surprised when you're asking for the 2 IDs, etc., and those kind of things. It's pretty standard now, basically.
It is standard, but I must also say that there's a lot of front-end workers at certain financial institutions that give information that is not always correct. So there must be an effort also from the central bank, from the insurance companies, from the brokers, from the different financial institutions, where we make sure that front-end employees have the proper information to convey to clients, because that creates a lot of frustration.
So then when someone here, Henderson Insurance, Henderson International, what are the services that you provide then for a customer?
We insure, we find insurance coverage for them. We canvass the market. So if you want to have a life insurance, instead of going to 5 different insurance companies to compare premiums, you come by us and we have a software system that is going to search and tell you, look, For $1 million with company A, you will pay $500 a year. With company B, it's $700, and then you can make a decision right there then. The same thing we do with properties, so homes, businesses, aircrafts, boats. If you have a business and your business suffers a loss, you have what you call business interruption. So you are supplemented the losses that you have for a specified period so that you can continue to pay expenses and so forth. And we do medical insurance as well. So anything that has to do with insurance, you don't need to go all over the place trying to figure out things.
So people don't have to go by the SLV, they could go to a broker for private insurance.
The SZV is regulated. It's a different law, and people are it's a compulsory coverage once you fall under a certain threshold.
Right.
So, and as a broker, we don't have the authority to represent SZV. It is something that we proposed when they were making the shift.
I'm sure they'll scream back about that, right?
Sorry?
They'll scream, no, right? They don't want that.
Well, I don't think we had a good discussion on it as yet because it was a government decision to raise the threshold from 60-something thousand to 100-something thousand. So more customers went to SZV, but it also means that SZV is collecting more premium, but they're paying out more losses. So, and that we have to see over time how it's going to shape up. But I am pretty sure that they are capable and they have actuaries and so on that are going to come up with the right formulas for it to be in good financial standing.
So we're in the hurricane time now for the next month until the 1st of December. So we have a long way to go, right?
Correct. Correct. This is just the beginning.
Yeah.
And like I said at the beginning of the interview, when you look at what happened already in 2024, it gives reason for concern.
It's scary, man. You know, no, seriously. I saw a forecaster giving some forecasts for this hurricane season, and it's the first time in my life I turned the TV off. I don't want to watch it because it's depressing. Because if you look at it, you listen to it, it's like, we're going to get mashed up really bad. Like, this is going to be the worst year for hurricane. And I don't even want to think about it anymore. See, I survived Lois and I survived Irma, and both of us did.
Yes.
And those were big ones.
But sometimes you wonder, can you take another one? It's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well.
And people that were not here, they always look at us and they're like, but how do you do it? Why do you live in St. Martin?
And I got into a taxi in a city in America, I won't mention the place, after Irma. And the guy said, you came from there? Yes. It was hell, man. The worst storm in the century, in the history, actually. So what else you're doing?
Well, yeah. We are just busy trying to make sure that we comply with regulations. We are seeing customers, making sure that we dot I's, cross T's. It is a time where you usually get not a rush per se, but people really want to know how am I standing with my coverage. And you have to make the time to see them. You have to make sure that your staff is also highly trained and that they can really make sure that you prepare customers for the worst.
So you're in 2 locations now, right?
Yes, Madam Estate and in Cold Bay.
Okay.
Opposite the movies.
That's good. All right, so always a pleasure having the program, man.
Yes, well, insurance is not the most spicy thing to talk about, but I think we do a good job every time.
No, I think over the years we've gotten very good feedback from our audience when they see you talk about insurance and
Okay.
during hurricane time.
Okay, good to know.
Mr. Neil Henderson, Chief Executive Officer of Henderson International, and that's it for now on Oracles Live on YouTube, Facebook, and on Hot 99.9 FM radio. See you next time. Take care. Bye.